Hi, I'm Dave Trull with the Trull Gallery, a custom furniture shop in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I want to give you a quick guide to how to use a circular saw. Circular saws have been around for a long time. We've all seen them. One of the first things you want to do, get yourself a good blade. I prefer a carbide tooth blade over a steel blade. Steel blades are getting hard to find these days. And a good circular saw blade, I think I paid maybe $7 or $8 for this guy. It's certainly worth it. Once we get our blade on, next thing we want to do is set our depth of cut. I want to set it so I've got just about a tooth width below the stock. You don't want to go too deep. Two of the problems with going really deep, you've got a lot of blade showing, which opens yourself up to more injury. And a really common occurrence with this is when you have that much blade showing, you go to set it down, and even with the blade guard in place, it's really easy to get your cord caught in all that blade. And when I was selling power tools, I used to see guys come in, once a week with their cords cut and having to replace them. This is a simple jig. It's just a fence and a board. And that would be clamped onto your stock. And when you make your first cut, you want this board to be, in my case, I've got 5 inches from the edge of my shoe to the blade. So I made this about 6 inches long so that as I ran my first cut, kept my shoe up against my fence. I made this first cut so that I always know if I've got my stock, I draw my line, I can take this jig, clamp it right to my line, and where the line is and where the jig meet is exactly where my saw is going to cut. Another option is kind of an aftermarket unit, and these are clamping jigs. And in this case, there's math involved, because we know our shoe is going to ride here, and our line, we know what we want to line out here somewhere. So we then have to measure out to get the correct distance so that our shoe is right on. And that's going to give us about, let's go ahead, we'll cut off about 1 inch of this stock. And we simply snug up the jig and then lock it. It's a 2-position cam lock. And lock that right in place. We're now set. We can go ahead and plug in our drill. We're now set. We can go ahead and plug in our saw. And you can either start your cut by bringing your guard up a little or let the saw do it naturally. I like to start it by bringing it up just a little. And there's a couple of things you may have seen me do. I actually came around the stock, so I was walking comfortable distance rather than leaning way out. You don't want to get extended. If you're cutting a 4-foot piece of plywood and you're leaning way out here, it's a really dangerous situation to be in. You can either get hurt, or if you're lucky, just mess up your piece because the saw is going to start to do weird things on you. And the other thing I did is, as I got about halfway across, my cord is starting to dangle back here. So I picked my cord up so I have plenty of slack. On a piece like this, not a big deal because it's fairly short. If you're doing, say, an 8-foot cut, odds are you're going to get about 6 feet across, and where your cord and extension cord meet is going to grab on something. That's going to lock up, and you're not going to be able to finish your cut. Again, putting you in a situation you don't really want to be in. And once you've been doing this for a while, you get the feel of the saw. You'll get to the point where you say, I really don't need to set up that jig. I can go ahead and I can follow that line by eye. And if you're watching your line as you're cutting, even with a jig, you get used to looking at that and giving yourself a reference point, and eventually you'll be able to wean yourself away from the jig. Kind of like training wheels for a circular saw. So real simple, that's a guide for operating a circular saw. I'm Dave Trull with the Trull Gallery. the fine art of furniture making.